Alright, this is the first portion of my plan to build a better technology plan. Here we're looking at improving the technical and professional quality of the plan for Euclid City Schools. And I chose to divide this up because I saw all the improvements I was trying to make kind of fall into two categories. Here again, I'm focusing on technical and professional quality. In other words, improving the look, the flow, the writing, as opposed to the specific technological content. So we're going to be looking at a couple things, and first of all, one thing, and this is just a matter of look and professionalism, is adding a cover page. I designed a little cover page that could go with it. It includes the school's logo, a picture of the entrance to the high school. I just got those pictures off of their website. But something like this just adds a little bit of attraction to the document of what to many would seem would probably be a pretty boring document, but it adds something to it and kind of draws the reader in. A second improvement is in the planning committee itself. We want to expand and also specify the planning committee. These plans obviously would take a lot of time to do. So, two things. Number one, I noticed that there were no students included, at least none listed. And secondly, there were no names listed other than two individuals who were called approvers, and we'll get to them in just a moment. But for such a large project, I believe it would be important to include the students, since they are the ones that are going to be primarily impacted by this whole plan. In fact, the plan is designed to try to help them, but also just to give a little bit of recognition to those who are involved in the planning of this document. And that might also give other individuals an object, if they have ideas, to direct those ideas to, rather than trying to find someone, or just even worse, not giving any kind of ideas. When names are given, then people have someone to give those ideas to. Now, I mentioned the approvers. That's another improvement I would do. I would actually put them in another section. Say here, acknowledge key players, and that is the acknowledgments section. There was no special thanks, but I really feel that they should add an acknowledgments section to recognize those who played the largest role or roles in developing the plan. For instance, there were two men who were listed as approvers. The person who actually wrote the majority of the plan. Kind of the major contributors to this. Give a special thanks, and maybe even if they were able to get a corporate sponsor to do the printing of it, they could acknowledge that as well. But it's important to acknowledge those who have played a large role in putting this plan together. Another just kind of technical thing is the executive summary. As I read through the plan, they had a section 1.4, or originally 1.3, that was an overview of the current plan. And that was a good overview. It was a good section to include, but they included what we would recognize as the executive summary as part of that current review of the current plan. And it really didn't fit in that section. So it was in there. I would propose that we set it apart as its own section that exists in my revision as section 1.5. But getting it out of, it's kind of buried in that review, and getting it set apart so it draws the reader's eye, and they can quickly find a good summary of what this plan is all about. Okay. Now, another thing is the fact that Euclid did use the TPT, Technology Planning Tool, to help them write their plan. And it's a great tool, but we need to cut the TPT to directives. In the template, there are a number of directions on different sections or explanations of the purpose of certain sections, and those really in the final plan are unnecessary. Tools are great, but the reader shouldn't recognize it. It shouldn't look like a fill-in-the-blanks technology plan. In the end, someone who didn't know the TPT existed shouldn't shouldn't think anything of Euclid's plan and think that it came from somewhere else or was just, again, kind of a fill-in-the-blanks type of thing. So I omitted a number of different things in section 2.1. There were 3 sentences in one paragraph. There was another thing in section 2.2, and also in all of the content area, how will you be using technology to improve teaching and learning in the different content areas. They had the goal of this section is to do this. Well, the reader obviously knows that when they're reading it. It was necessary for the person writing the plan, but not for the reader. I also excluded one sentence in section 2.9, and then down in section 4 on networking and internet and telecommunications, there were activities, and it gave directions for the writer to perform different activities to gather data, and then the data results were included in the plan. And what I did is I cut those paragraphs and rewrote the directions and made them more of an explanation for the reader of where that data came from. So that occurred down in section 4.1. But I felt that was helpful in the readability of the document, and again, just professionally making it look more of their own document rather than a fill-in-the-blanks tool. There were 2 areas in which I found a lot of repetition. There was some very significant repetitive content, and what I did is I actually moved that content to its own section. In the content areas, the ELA, the foreign language, mathematics, science, and so on, the paragraphs that you see here were all repeated verbatim in each section. And this is about a third of a page worth of content. So if you think about it, it's repeated in 5 or 6 different sections. You're getting 3 extra pages of content that's all the same, when it could just be this small section here, and I made it general for in the content areas. So I felt that was helpful. Another area to avoid repetition was some less significant repetitive content, and what I did with this is I actually moved it to an appendix. There was some information on professional development about how they were going to do tracking and follow-up, again about professional development and monitoring progress. This could have been made its own section. I felt it was a little less significant to the overall plan. It's just my opinion, so I included it in the appendix, but again, this was about a half-page worth of information that was repeated verbatim in every one of those content areas. So overall, just with these 2 avoiding repetition editing choices, it cut the overall document down by approximately 4 pages. And I felt that, you have a document that's already close to 40 pages long. This really, I think, drastically helps the readability of the document by cutting it down, and those who are involved and who are interested in, how are they going to track professional development, they can find that in the appendix, and but it's not as essential for the overall plan. So those are the key points of the technical and professional edits that I would make and changes I would make to this plan.